introduce and do another interview tonight on one of the players. And we've actually got on the bottom part of our screen here, rotating some of the artwork that we have for Fizzle. And one of the screens is rotating through a couple of the options. So
gotcha.
we'll ultimately discuss the one that's solid frame in there, and you'll see later too. But
can't wait.
Yeah. So anyhow, I'm Colin. I'm the DM of Arcana of Alstaria. Also help run some of the social medias here at Shadow Realm Fiction. John is my semi-counterpart. He helps think of ideas and helps bring to light some of the microphones that we have here, and just general gives good feedback for us. So this is John. He's also a player in both the campaigns. And recently, you got to see him take off on his first DMing camp sessions.
Yeah, that was the first time running a session, which was pretty exciting. It was fun sitting on the other side of the DM screen, just kind of getting a feel and seeing how, you have kind of like a set path for everyone, and learning how everyone learns to deviate from that path.
Right.
And then rearranging that path to then make that the new path
on the fly. Yeah.
On the fly, yeah.
So, do you want to introduce a little bit about who you are as a player before we get to your characters?
Sure. Yeah. My name is John Grounds. I'm from Houston, Texas. Moved to here in good old wet, rainy Ketchikan 3 years ago. So, by day, I'm a chiropractor. By night, I'm a defender of the realm against internet dragons.
Yes.
So that's pretty much.
And when you say internet dragons, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been playing Baldur's Gate 3.
Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah. It's been my recent obsession, which is surprisingly making me a much better player in D&D.
Yes. I'm an Xbox player myself, and so I don't have Baldur's Gate 3 yet, but I've been playing Solasta, which is kind of I won't say cheap version, but it's just...
Is that Lorien Studios?
I don't know that I don't remember who's the creator of Solasta, but it has it's basically what taught me how the shield mechanic worked in D&D, because it's like, shield's a stupid spell. Why would I waste an action on that? Oh, you can reaction.
Yeah. It's cool because it'll give you the option of it'll lay out here's your bonus action, here's your action, and then it helps you kind of prompt your reaction as well. So it helps you kind of look at spells in a different light of what's my action economy of, do I have too many actions and do I want to kind of shift focus on a little bit more bonus actions, or do I have too many bonus actions where I don't get to use all the ones that I think would fit, and then I can just kind of shuffle them around to better fit.
Right. No, and I think that for relatively new player DM, that the video games that they have been releasing has been a big help in understanding some mechanics about the world. So yeah, John got to join both campaigns pretty quick succession. I think he joined Grasp of the Starved first.
I did.
And within 2 sessions, I decided to steal him. And then a couple months fast forward, and then we started streaming. And so John has been a delight to get there. But we will do a future interview with you about Manny. But tonight we're just going to focus on Fizzle.
Just on Fizzle.
So how about you go ahead and introduce Fizzle? We have him up on the screen rotating through, so the viewers can see kind of some of the art that I sent you, and ultimately what one you kind of went down the path on choosing out of the 3 options that were sent to you. So just explain. Let's start with his name, his class, and then kind of how you would describe him.
Okay. I actually wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you know what his last name is?
I want to say Boom Pop.
Boom Pop. Okay, because everyone calls him Fizzle Boom.
Yeah.
And I swear everyone's forgotten his full name is Fizzle Boom Pop.
Okay.
But everyone just calls him Fizzle anyways.
Yes.
But I just wanted to make sure that...
the DM remembered? Yeah.
Yeah.
I occasionally go across it, but...
You remember that? I've heard it it's Fizzle. I've heard other kind of changes to that name, it's Fizzle Pop, or it's or just Fizzle Boom, or it's just different variations of.
To be fair, you don't roleplay the character where he corrects anybody about it, so.
No, he's past caring. I mean, have you interacted with the old person?
Yeah.
So Fizzle Boom is in human years about 95 years old, which we determined in gnomish years is over 300, maybe about 350 years old. So I played him as a wizened kind of grandpa character. He kind of wants to be a chaperone, because when it was introduced, there was Darling and then Curad, which were kind of his, not the antithesis, but very childish, very like ADHD, going off, having like their own side adventures.
Yes, a rogue and a druid.
A rogue and a druid, just BFFs who just love flowers and just enjoying the sunshine.
Yeah.
And living their best life. Which, playing Fizzleboom, he grew up on a very poor farm, a lot of large family, a lot of siblings that went off to war, because he's lived through the previous Dragon War in the past, and that's kind of grizzled him a little bit. He was more weak compared to his siblings, so he didn't go off to fight the war. He went the academic route. So he went to school. He had all the formal training, very scholarly, where he met the love of his life in school, and then they had a single daughter, where they now end up in Dunrust, where kind of fit him into the story where his family's there, his wife and child, and the child's been cursed. So his whole motive and his motivation is just about supporting his child and finding a way to cure her. So he sends a lot of money home. They're kind of being extorted in a way to where he needs to keep paying money to either the local priest or local healers to keep her sustained and alive.
Yes. So, and that brings how you were kind of introduced to the party, is that you, one, grandfatherly, like you said, you hit that right there. But also, I think that it was quickly canonically easy for you to take over the books. And when I got a chance to roleplay Fizzle, that was basically kind of one of the aspects that I also pick up on, is you're part of the Librarians Guild, which really wasn't a thing before Fizzle came around.
Got
so
to add that in, and it's helped
talk
out
about
tremendously.
talk about the winding path, about how DM just kind of has to flex, and all of a sudden there's a need for a Librarians Guild because it makes sense.
So for him to be like he has like a love for books, love for reading, kind of similar to Ben's character, or Luke's character, where he loves like military and reading. And he also fit that stereotype, but more so for like military strategy.
But you're not as stoic of a character, at least from what I would see.
He's very animated. He's like that gnomish, like I think I forgot what I said, like, oh, that really fizzles my pop one day, and I thought that was kind of hilarious. So he has these like little gnomish quips that you kind of expect to see from someone who wants to like curtail their language a little bit to be kid friendly, since he has a daughter at home, and he's kind of playing with other, I won't say immature characters, but other players that like express like a childhood joy. So he wants to kind of nurture that and kind of steer it without stifling it.
Absolutely. So we're going to back up now before we jump back into what we're talking about. So what was the original? You were pretty fresh to Grasp of the Starved and just jumping back into D&D. And then introduction, barely know me other than playing with me, and decided to come along. What are some inspirations for Fizzle? How did he come about? From John to creating the character.
I wanted to play something that scared me. I've played. Well, I'm not a fan of casters. So, and artificers are big, and they're kind of like a half caster, like a quarter caster. Yeah. So before I've only played a few campaigns in the past, and it's been like a rogue or a barbarian or someone that's very like melee oriented, right? And because a
martial class,
exactly. Yeah. And this was a different direction, and I wanted to play something that kind of like I said, kind of scared me a little bit, like something new that I was totally unfamiliar with, and just try to understand that character's role in the world.
So would you say Artificer is the most intimidating of the classes to look at prior?
I think so, because a lot of it comes down to creativity and I won't say flavoring, but knowing how to maximize your background in these very specific ways. Like your character is supposed to build stuff. He's supposed to enchant his own items.
Right.
He's meant to he has spells. They're not very strong spells, but they're very effective in the right circumstance. So he has access to not very forward damaging spells, but ones that kind of control the battlefield a little bit.
Right. So more of a support type class, and that's what me playing him also was realizing. I would say that for complicated and looking at the classes, this is where I find a resonance between yours and Phil's character, because he's also a very typically a martial player, and so to step outside and have to figure out how to do the mechanics of the blood curses, and also step outside and you don't just have spells, but you have to create, you have to tinker, and you have to be I feel like I'm a pretty relaxed DM, so I feel like when you're like, I'm gonna go tinker for some time while we're traveling, I don't like usually story-wise make you sit and explain too often.
Oh no, I try to explain it myself. I sit in the corner with a hammer and just bang, 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 bang. Like that's the all tinkering I do.
And so that's why there's not like necessarily a spotlight, but there is correct me if I'm wrong, there is a driving aspect of that, where if you are going to play an Artificer for the viewers, that's something that you have to consider, that if your DM isn't cognizant of what an Artificer does and whatnot, that you're going to have to set aside time to build things. Like you had to build the cannon, right?
Yeah, that was, so you like the cannon itself, build it as in you get to choose which kind of route you want to go. So the artillerist, there's the battlesmith, there's the armorer. Out of those three, the artillerist looked more fun and damagey.
Right.
Then the other two kind of, armorer's obviously more tanky. The battlesmith probably was more challenging than the artillerist, because he has a companion that's also like a guardian dog, and that looked more hasslesome to manage. It
definitely is. Little history for you. In my campaign 1, where I said I had an Artificer player, I did, hi Leo, I did have a Artificer player, and he was a battlesmith. So I was familiar with that mechanic of the extra minions, so it wasn't for me as a DM too difficult to see you going down the path of not battlesmith, but the artillerist. There's still extra things, and that's kind of what supports the class. So to jump back into future time in the campaign, we've been talking on the sidelines before this interview, and where are you at now with Fizzle, in particularly combat? Because I know we've discussed this, and now we're just going to bring it to light.
I was going to ask you, tell me, you played Fizzle Boom for the one shot.
Yes.
Playing him compared to going around and playing other people's characters.
Granted, I've only played one.
You've only played one other.
Yeah, it was just Ben's.
Just Ben's. Okay, so playing his character to mine, you could probably tell there's a big difference in damage.
So there is a big difference, but I will say that and this isn't a thumbs down towards Ben's character at all, but that class, the Hexblade Knight, I think.
Oh, it's max. It's like min-max.
It's a power player.
I think when I got access to his stats, my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
I see him walk up, and then he's casually does 43 damage. I'm like, if I break 20, I'm happy.
Right. So I've played personally where Fizzle's at, I'd say, is not untypical of average hitting.
I feel like he's middle of the pack.
I don't think he's too terribly low. I think if there is more opportunity for, and this is something that I'll have to look in and participate in for DM side, but also for you as well, if there's more mechanical items that will help boost damage output. Like, I don't know if there's a legendary item that eventually will need to be kind of written in to a degree to help, because to be fair, I've given a lot of items off to players at different times in the campaign already. So even though they're level 10, they're wielding items that or level 9.
We're level
10,
9.
yeah.
About to be 10, yeah.
You're wielding items that are past that, I think, and when you typically see it. But is that something that you think would help buff? Is that something you're interested in?
It's one thing I've noticed, I think, with artificers and everything I've researched, is that you get most benefits compared to like equipment and armor and weapons, that you get most benefit out of items like the Cube of Force that I built. So it actually inspired, like, when I was tinkering.
Right.
And
I saw that item, and that was too confusing for me when I was role-playing. I was like, I'm only role-playing for one session. I'm not going to mess with this thing. I'm not going to mess with this thing. So.
It's so broken.
Is it?
It's like, unless you have like a list of 5 specific spells that can deal damage to it, it's almost like impregnable. Like, I can just create a force field and just choose when to drop it and bring it back up, which I think I had to use in that scenario in that mage tower, which helped stall for time, and I still got downed afterwards, even though I like voluntarily.
That was a heck of a fight.
That was a scary fight.
I don't think we were recording yet, but I think like the session before we started streaming, I almost downed all of my players. Yeah, it wasn't quite a TPK, but
I was on the precipice for sure. I was one death saving throw away. Yeah. So that was scary, but it definitely helped me realize I need to make Fizzle more tanky and more protected in that sense. Even though his artillery should be in the back line, should be firing away, I think our group tends to have a lot more, I want to say caster heavy. It's hard to say because I need to kind of how many martial versus range that we have, but I feel like a lot of us aren't very good at taking damage.
That's true. It's also true that the party doesn't currently have a cleric or any there is some people that can help boost some health stuff, but it's not like there's a dedicated healer announced in the group at this point. And not that I'm suggesting, we do have a new player joining us hopefully this Sunday, and I'm not going to coerce her into being a cleric if she doesn't want to be, but I will casually mention.
That's usually the role I love playing. I love playing like the healer support, so being a support.
We'll talk about a martial heavy tanky class that can usually, I feel like clerics can take a beating.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Like they're allowed to be the front line. They have a mace to the face. Yeah. That they can dish out as well. So
back to Fizzle. In Fizzle's character, who does Fizzle like interacting with the most out of the other players?
That was a good question. I was really inspired by Krista's character, Darling, because he has an enfeebled granddaughter he's trying to support. Krista's Harrington was also very kind of childish in nature, and so he definitely gravitated towards that kind of bond with her, where he felt like he could be that fatherly figure. He could like support her. He just wants to protect her. Yeah. So I would say in regards to relationship, I think he has a special bond with Darling. Okay.
And then who would you say he has the least with?
Well, for a while it was Stormy. And that was, but he's Loki left, so he's not playing anymore, unfortunately. But when the first encounter was like, he not strangled my character, he grappled my character. That was, I would imagine, very off-putting for the first time meeting someone who is now living with you, got drunk, and barges into your room to like grapple you into a hug while you're trying to sleep. So I feel like that was a rough start for Fizzle to overcome. I would say currently within the party, I don't think he doesn't hate anyone.
No, I didn't think he was contentious against anybody per se, but
I would say he's just probably a little like awry with Ritz.
Yeah.
Just because the party knew Ritz before Fizzle was there, then he joined, and then Ritz is back.
Yes.
Who is this silent, very like to himself kind of character, and Ritz just hasn't had like a good bonding moment with him.
Yeah, that's fair. So we're getting to the last 10-ish minutes. Where did I want to go with this? I think we kind of flirted around it, but how is the campaign for you and Fizzle going at this point?
I think it's really good.
Okay.
I think it's going really great. I like the idea of gathering the legendary weapons. It might be challenging kind of having everyone voice each character. There's going to be a lot, like, unless if you like have your moment, you pull the sword, then you have like your quip or something. That's going to be fun to juggle. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. So here's the tidbit for future reference, and this is where I'll shout out to my other players and see if they actually watch it, so you get some tidbits. Ooh. The swords are designed to be voice acted up until they're used. So there's going to be a use moment. So we will see that be coming down the chute. So it's a mechanic that's in while it's in, but it won't have to be a forever. That way we're not managing for... Because if you think about where we're at right now, we're probably halfway, maybe slightly over the halfway mark of part 2 of 5 parts, and we're a year into the campaign. So not that I'm trying to rush the campaign by any means, but just thinking time-wise that if we had the swords and voice acting, it could potentially be 2 years of voice acting chaos with everything. So that's kind of my slight answer to that it's a fun mechanic for now.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. It's a little bit to juggle.
Yes.
But it's also kind of very rewarding when you can actually see the party grow as a whole. When everyone like gets a legend, like as you know, Ben got his legendary sword, as Rad got her legendary spear, or glaive. You can almost just perceive a massive growth of character. Like now you realize, oh, this person can dish out some damage and do some serious work.
Was that a transition you saw from part 1 to part 2, kind of a growth of player and party?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like from the transition, it was, I think that the gear, the leveling up, I mean, just the progression's been very almost like non-linear, where it just like we're getting stronger, and with each weapon there's a big spike in that damage. Right,
so it's not a straight line, but it is hopefully... I don't want there to be too many plateaus, but I like giving space in between leveled ups to breathe, so you're not just bam, bam, bam,
learning new stuff. And use it,
I mean, that's fun, but there is a certain method to my madness for the campaign and when level ups do happen.
Yeah, I know a lot of our characters also have like benchmark levels where like there's a power spike.
Yeah.
So I know for artificers, I believe level 10 is
going to be okay.
But it also depends on what magical items I make and how if it fits within the world and what you allow and kind of how all those pieces fit together.
Yeah. For Fizzle, is there anything that he is searching for in the mechanics of the story that you feel was either lacking from backgrounds or you haven't seen yet but you've gotten hints, or have I not provided enough hooks at this point that I mean, I don't know how much people actually pick up sometimes. So I will say there have been hooks. Whether or not they've been hit, I don't know.
Right. I think one of my favorite sessions that we unfortunately wasn't recorded, but I think set a strong foundation for the party and the mechanics of how the party works together was that session where we all jumped into each other's memories and each other's lives. Yeah. I thought that was absolutely incredible in a mechanical sense of connecting to your character. Just providing a lot more background, empathy, also giving kind of an idea of, we're going to travel to the Fey realm or the Shadow realm, and we got a glimpse into each other's lives who were part of that.
Yeah.
And so seeing that kind of recursion, or like having that information, that background kind of play a part in the bigger world is, I think, what adds flavor the most.
So are you is you as player John more role play or combat?
That's a good question. I used to be I would only play combat. Like, I wouldn't role play.
You were just about the combat?
And I think Fizzle, because he's not so combat oriented as a character, it's, like I said, it's kind of forced me to like learn how to be more roleplay heavy and find a lot more flavor in that sense of like, well, if I'm not going to shine in combat, I want to shine out of combat, where an artificer would probably excel at is, if he's, it was funny, as I was making the character, I was also reading the series The Lives of Locke Lamora. So it was in the sense of like, I want to write the, to the local like tax collector, like I want to make sure that enough hands and palms are greased in a way to let the operations function.
Right.
A lot of, because it's a war-torn country, there's a lot of profitability, there's a lot of kind of greasing the palms in that sense of, there's going to be illicit activities, and I wanted him to be around that.
So kind of wrapping up here, is the hidden hair a good mechanic for a player like Fizzle?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. I mean, we have like the strategy room, we have the tavern, which is a good source of income, but also permanent buffs to upgrading that, to upgrading the characters, making them feel stronger. Like, I don't know if we built the library yet, but having like a permanent bonus to, I think we did build the library, but having that kind of increase the party's stats by contributing money via the business, love it. It's great.
Well, I super appreciate it. Do you have any follow-up questions with me at this time about the campaign? Anything you want to try and steal from my mind?
Are you going to allow flying?
Allow flying, yeah.
Because it's one of those where if the players do it, the DM can do it, and if, characters can do some busted stuff,
you guys
but
have been watching too many DM horror stories of where they, like, finger-pointed death killed,
Rocks fall. That's kind of the go-to is rocks fall on you and you can't fly.
I mean, there is a scale, and I think as a player, and recently DMing, you begin to see what you have to balance on this side of the table. But I try to make it like the gloves are off from part one. Like, I wasn't gonna kill anybody in part one, and now it's not, as a DM, my choice, I won't say choice, but my ambition to kill the party or a player.
To kill us,
there's nobody that I'm like, I kind of want them dead because they've been a pain in the ass, nothing like that. But it is to the point where if circumstances happen where, people are too combat heavy focused on fighting this guy and they've let the player roll 3 death saves without doing anything about it. There's that mechanic, and as you saw with the combat, sometimes you've just got to beef up the health to match with what the players have and can do, because if you have a player that can do 50 damage every turn, then you're gonna have to up.
Are you allowed up here?
That one is.
Oh, you got special privileges.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I understand there's finagling and there's, times to, tweak some stuff as it's happening. But yeah, I can definitely tell there's no prerogative to kill us, but now, like you said, the gloves are off. Like, dumb actions should have dire consequences, in my opinion. Like, you do stupid stuff, you're going to get stupid answers. Like, that's the way it should be. Like, we're in a war, we're trying to save the realm, and if there's a lot of frivolity or kind of like just goofing around, then I feel like that shouldn't, it'll probably be punished more heavily, I think, in the second session or the second campaign.
Right. Well, I think that's all. We're trying to keep these relatively short, 30 minutes or under, so we're about, I think, at that with our delayed start.
Cool.
And so, super thank you, John, for coming over on a Thursday night to just chat about Fizzle. I feel like we could totally chat about him more. but I think I'm gonna try and get through the rest of the Arcana of Alstaria characters,
and then
the whole
staff,
and then I'll see if Luke wants to interview the players, or if he'd rather me still continue to do an interview series with the people of Grass of the Starved. But I think for lore mechanic, this helps people understand what Fizzle looks like, and
oh yeah, I want to see.
Yeah, you come on. You've been on this side of the screen.
Yeah.
So I figured out how to do. John's my guy that's been helping me learn some of this stuff. So I've got a slideshow of some of the artwork, and then I've got the posted one. So we didn't talk about this, but yeah.
Fizzle wouldn't wear a hat.
Yeah. So there's that. We were working on some various artwork and descriptions and stuff like that, and ultimately the one that's stagnant here is the one we've decided for the player profile for Fizzle, as close as we can with tools that we have,
Turned out pretty well.
Yeah, I'm not an artist. So
until we get better, what was it? A recreate program?
Yeah, AI, Wonder, all that type of stuff.
Oh, I thought Krista was learning.
Oh yeah. My wife and one of the players is learning, and so I think in future standpoint, she might even have the competence to create player stuff more for how we detail it. But anyhow, thank you for your time, John, and thank you for the streamers that stop by or watch later on. We'll be sure to cut some clips and continue to get this rolled out to social media. And thank you, John, for always editing the YouTube videos.
Yeah, no worries.
And everybody have a great rest of your night.